In this video, we're going to look at a couple of ways that we can execute PHP using Drush. If you haven't yet, at some point you're going to run into a scenario where you'd love to have all of the functions available to you through Drupal and run some particular code in order to modify some data or grab some data or just perform some logic. Now, typically, there would be two ways of accomplishing this. One would be by adding this code inside of a module and removing it later when you don't need it anymore, or turning on the PHP evaluator filter so that you can create a node that includes some PHP inside of the node content and run it by creating a piece of content. Now, both of these are a little rough because you're adding code in places where you'll have to remove it later, and sometimes you might forget to do that. But with Drush, what we can do is bootstrap Drupal, that is, get all of the functions, all of the logic that already exist in Drupal and all of the modules, and then run some arbitrary PHP code. Now, there's two ways to do this. One is by running it directly on the command line, and the second is by putting it into a script file and then triggering it via the command line. Let's go ahead and do the first one, which is pretty simple. So in this first example, what we're doing is taking advantage of a function in Drupal called format interval. The format interval function will simply take a number of seconds and convert it into something like 2 days, 4 minutes ago. So what we're doing here is taking the difference between the current time, which we get using the time function, and the time of a particular day. This could be someone's birthday, for example, and we want to find out the difference between now and when they were born so we know their age. So we're taking this readable date and running it through string to time, which will convert it to seconds. And so time minus this value will be the number of seconds between now and the time they were born. And then format interval will make that more readable. So when we go ahead and hit enter here, we get the number of years that the person has been around and the number of months. Now, all we had to do to run this code was use the command drush php-eval. That's short for evaluate. And then our code needs to be in quotes. Here's another example of using PHP eval. So what we're doing here is loading user1 using the user load function, and then using var dump in order to print out the values. So when we hit enter, what we'll see is an array that's easily readable that includes all of the information that the user load function provides for us. Now again, this is dependent on Drupal being loaded before we actually run the user load function. Let's do one more, which is pretty similar here. And what we're running here is drush php-eval. And just like before, we're printing the full variable that's returned from the node load function. And if we hit enter, we'll see all of the data as we scroll through that comes with that node object. Now, this has been some pretty simple code that fits on one line pretty well, but a lot of times you'll need additional lines in order to easily read the code and create the code. And so in those cases, it makes sense to create a separate file that includes the PHP script and then load it using the drush PHP script function. So in order to demonstrate this, let's go ahead and grab a script from our resource pack. I'm going to jump to my files, and inside of the coders folder, let's go ahead and copy the Drupal scripts folder. And we can paste this wherever we want. It can be inside of our main Drupal directory, but I'm going to put it one step up so that I can access these scripts from all of my Drupal sites. That means I can create a script once and be able to use it on any of my sites by using the same path, and it will be easy for me to remember. I'm going to go ahead and paste this in. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the one script that's in here called lastaccessed.php. Now what this will do is run this query that will grab the last 10 users to access the website, and it will order them according to the time that they accessed. So this is just a quick way to see the most recent users on your site. The script here will loop through each result and print out the name, and then format the interval using the format interval function we just talked about to tell us how much time has passed since the last time they accessed the site. Let's go ahead and jump back to the command line and run this. So the way we run it is by using drush and then the command php-script, and then we point it to the location of the script. This is one step up in the file structure, and then it's in the Drupal scripts directory, and the name of it is lastaccessed.php, and I'm going to hit enter. So here we see that admin accessed the site 35 minutes ago, and then the user Chris never accessed the site, and so they show up as last accessing the site 41 years ago. Using the PHP script function can be a great way to add additional reports and utilities to Drush without building Drush commands yourself.